Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Learn about how to cut your rental property vacancies and keep tenants twice as long, why Memphis, Tennessee stays the cash flow king, and exactly where to find really low-cost quality properties today that make sense from day one. Today on Get Rich Education. You know, most people think they're playing it safe with their liquid money, but they're actually losing. Savings accounts and bonds don't keep up when true inflation eats 6 or 7% of your wealth every single year. I invest my liquidity with FFI, Freedom Family Investments, in their flagship program. Why? Fixed 10 to 12% returns have been predictable and paid quarterly. There's real-world security backed by needs-based real estate like affordable housing, senior living, and healthcare. Ask about the Freedom Flagship Program when you speak to a Freedom coach there. And that's just one part of their family of products. They've got workshops, webinars, and seminars designed to educate you before you invest. Start with as little as $25K and finally get your money working as hard as you do. Get started at freedomfamilyinvestments.com/GRE. Or send a text now. It's 1-937-795-8989. Yep, text their Freedom Coach directly. Again, 1-937-795-8989.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE, from New York's Long Island Sound to Washington's Puget Sound and across 188 nations worldwide. I'm Keith Weinhold, and you're listening to Get Rich Education. There's an economic trend that you need to be aware of. We're going to talk about how you can play it in this era. Sources ranging from Redfin to HousingWire and others, they're all in agreement that the transiency rate, that mobility rate for Americans, is down. And what that means is when people find a place to live, whether they're a property owner or a renter, they are staying put longer. They put this big, heavy anchor down. And that kind of goes along with employment. Although the unemployment rate is low right now, there aren't very many people moving jobs or changing jobs. So the rate of hiring is low. That's bad. But the rate of employer firings is low. That's good. So on balance, Americans are keeping their job if they've already got one, and they're keeping their home if they've already got one. But because movement has slowed, as we are in this slower housing market, I'll drastically oversimplify here. All right, a few years ago, you might have had a tenant stay for 2 years, and then there would be a 1-month vacancy between tenancies. Today, double both of those. You're more likely to see a 4-year stay, but 2 months between vacancies. So your occupancy rate, therefore, is the same in both scenarios, but there's less movement. Again, oversimplifying, but you can see the effect. A longer vacancy period is bad. A longer tenant retention period is good. All right, well, how do you increase your tenant's length of stay and decrease that vacancy in order to be more profitable as an investor and yet give your tenant a satisfactory experience too? Well, one thing that you can do is list your vacant unit with an employer. Yeah, advertise it through a local, stable company. You're going to end up with higher quality tenants. See, there's already this built-in screening that was done for you. The employer basically did that for you. So when you work directly with, especially hospitals, universities, corporate campuses, or military bases, what you're doing is you're fishing from a pond of already vetted, income verified, and drug-screened candidates. See, these tenants, what they had to do, they already had to pass HR background checks and employment verification in order to get their job. So for you, that saves you both risk and time compared to the Craigslist style roll the dice crowd. Now, of course, we cannot discriminate against certain groups of people, and we'll get into that shortly. But of course, steady employment equals steady rent. Tenants sourced through employers, they usually have reliable paychecks, often through direct deposit. They've got predictable work schedules, and there's going to be less income volatility. So that means that you'll have fewer late payments and lower eviction risk. And some landlords, you know what they do? They even structure rent payments through payroll deduction. I mean, that essentially automates the rent collection. Yes, you can do that. Employees who move for a job, they often sign longer leases because relocating again would be a hassle. So many will stay in your unit as long as they stay employed. That could be 2 years or 5 years, especially in the healthcare, education, and tech sector. So less turnover means fewer make-ready costs for you, fewer showings, and just more ease and peace of mind. So advertising through employers, that is a really low competition marketing channel as well. You know, most landlords, they blast their listings on Zillow, apartments.com, or maybe Facebook Marketplace. Well, over there, your post is just one out of hundreds. Instead of all that competition, what you're doing is you're finding quiet, uncrowded channels when you utilize these employer housing boards and their HR relocation departments. And this way you can even get inside that company's internal newsletters. So you're reaching renters before they can even start scrolling listings over on Zillow. And see, employers love this too. It's not like the employer is having to do a favor for you. They love it because when they can help new hires or transferees find housing, it's better for that company. It reduces the employee's stress. It improves the retention at that company if they have an employer that's satisfied and has a good place to stay, and it really boosts that company's recruiting success. So you're helping yourself, you're helping that company, and you're helping their new employee, which is your tenant. So this makes HR departments, they are surprisingly receptive to you. They might even circulate your listing internally or add you to their housing resource list. So this is a perfect fit for these, hands-off turnkey investors. So if you're doing that or you're managing properties remotely, this employer outreach, it really gives you a nice extra layer of reliability. And as far as the people that will be your tenants, think about nurses, engineers, IT staff, sometimes teachers, sometimes military-based personnel. I mean, they are all ideal long-term tenants. Now, the way that you can actually do this and put it into practice is identify major employers that are near your property. That could be hospital systems, that could be universities or manufacturing plants. Then contact their HR or the relocation department. And after that, it's not hard. Just provide them with a concise PDF or a one-page flyer with your property photos and the monthly rent amount. And one thing you can do, and you should in this case, is put the distance or the time it takes to travel to the employer from your rental unit, and then add your contact info. That is exactly how you do it. You can offer a small incentive like $50 off the first month for employees. So this is a slick way to advertise your vacancy with employers and make you more profitable over time. Now, today we're going to talk to who is actually America's oldest turnkey real estate company. As far as we know, they're based in Memphis, Tennessee, and we'll learn how they advertise a vacant unit and screen prospective tenants and place them and maintain their units over time. They are called Mid-South home buyers. You've heard them on the show before. And because of their success, both investors and other real estate companies, they actually listen in intently to what these people have to say. I mean, others study them and learn from them. These are the people other companies study, and you're soon going to hear from their principal and their sales lead about reducing your vacancy time and increasing your tenant duration. And it's just kind of funny how often Memphis, Tennessee, which is where they're based, how often this comes up in cash flowing real estate conversations that you have out there over time. I mean, Memphis consistently has the best cash flow, maybe amongst any substantial metro in the nation. We'll just say among metros that are big enough to have a major pro sports team. I mean, Memphis does have the NBA Grizzlies. There aren't many other cities that can even compete with Memphis as the cash flow king, although there are some that you can work into the conversation. Indianapolis, Cleveland, and Oklahoma City are some of those places. Now, before we're done, you'll also learn about how even following this generation's big inflationary wave, how purchase prices are still as affordable as they are in both Memphis and Little Rock. I mean, this is going to make you ask out loud today, how could they still be so low? We'll also talk about conventional, enduring property management techniques today. Now, next month here on the show, we're going to talk about how you can use AI to self-manage your properties. And that show next month is going to be with an expert straight from Silicon Valley. We're going to talk to the CEO of Hemlane then and their AI-driven property management software. She used to work for Apple, and she's got a Harvard Business School degree. That is next month. Today, it's about tried and proven techniques to make you more profitable as an investor. I'd like to welcome in longtime friends of the show, with the emphasis on long time, since they were first here with us nearly 11 years ago. They are those ever-steady property providers based in Memphis, Mid-South homebuyers. They also serve Little Rock, Arkansas. I have physically walked their offices and properties in person myself. They are, in fact, America's oldest turnkey real estate provider, and it's the return of their founder and principal, Terry Kerr, and a second guest who you'll meet shortly. Terry, welcome back onto the show.
Thanks so much, Keith. So glad to be back.
Congrats on your success. Your model and operation is prominent and exemplary nationally. You've now grown to 110 W-2 employees there, and your 13-plus year property management guru who's been leading that entire division is now your sales director. It's terrific to introduce him to the world today, Matthew Vanhorn.
Keith, so great to be on here. Longtime listener of the show. Really great to meet you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Now you'll soon be listening to yourself on the show. GRE listeners are familiar with the turnkey real estate model. What you do is buy a distressed property, you rehab it, and then you place a tenant in the property, and you hold on to that for investors across the nation for the production of long-term cash flow. Well, let's get an update. Between Memphis and Little Rock, how many properties do you hold under management for investors now? And then what percent are single-family rentals versus other types?
Right now, we're about 57, maybe a little closer to 5,800. And the vast majority of them are single family houses. I'm going to say probably 5% are duplexes, Matthew?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So no other multis, just single family, most of them rehabs. And of course, now we're doing new construction direct to rental as well.
Interestingly, with 58 to 5,900 rentals, I mean, you can easily sort of be your own surveying outfit in an informal way in finding out what's happening with the market, what all the dynamics are. So why don't we start at the beginning when you're marketing and advertising and looking to place a tenant? Tell us about just what you look for, just what you need to avoid. I mean, checking for the tenant, that typically involves an employment check, a credit check, a rental history. Sometimes something might appear like a red flag, say a 590 credit score. Would you always accept tenants in that condition? Because there are times when there are extenuating circumstances when a tenant with a 590 credit score actually might be a good placement. So tell us more about that screening.
As you know, it is renters that drive our returns as investors. And so selecting the right renter is where the money is made in this business for sure. We are doing as much screening as we can for our renters. There's a lot that goes into that. We actually have a whole processing department. You know, some people here who spend their whole day working in the processing division. And what you really got to watch out for as far as red flags is just fraud. There are so many ways you can use machines to defraud, and we have people who are able to detect and weed out the bad actors there but we know what works really well. We have, for instance, in Arkansas, the main employer of our residents is Baptist Health Medical Center, and we love our healthcare workers there. So that's a place that, starting from the marketing side, we're going to dial up our marketing in those places. We're going to go to the HR department, or we're often in the HR department of Baptist Health Medical Center, pushing and asking for referrals from them, and same with just referrals in general. Good tenants tend to refer other good tenants. We're, of course, looking for strong income that we can verify. And more than anything, we're looking for strong, credible, current rental history. So someone who's paying the rent today somewhere to a verified landlord, not their sister, but a very verified landlord. That's the big thing, Keith.
Tell us more about that. That's great that you're being proactive and getting right in there with a stable, steady employer. That is where our rent comes from, after all. Are there any other red flags, maybe things that people would not think about identifying as a red flag when it comes to that employment and that credit and that rental history?
One reason I bring up the localized marketing that some people may not think about is that renters who move from out of state often will land in a place and then stay there for 1 year, which is fine, but then they often don't renew their lease and they'll move somewhere else. Now, of course, what we have to do above all is we have to be legal, so we can't discriminate against someone from coming from out of town, but what we can do is dial up our localized marketing so that we're getting people who are in the neighborhood, who love the neighborhood already where they are. And so that contributes to longer resident stays. And it's just little things like that. Once again, you're looking for employment that you can verify so that you know that you're getting a quality renter.
I'll also say that one of the ways that we try to attract the most potential residents we can is by having a free application. So typically a property management company is going to charge, $50 to $75 per applicant. And we're very fortunate that we get a terrific deal from Equifax because we're also lenders. We do some lending to our investors, which gives us a really good deal on paying for credit checks. And so we waive those fees for our residents. And so a lot more folks are going to apply with us because it doesn't cost them anything to apply. And of course, the more people that apply, you've got a much better shot at filling the property quicker, but also finding a much better resident.
Well, this is a great part of building the connection. One of the first interactions they have with you is realizing that you don't have any application fee. And AI can be great for marketing and for doing things like writing listing descriptions, but you build that human connection there. For example, you do in-person showings. You invite prospective tenants and current tenants into your physical office, kind of replacing society's trust crisis with humanity.
Yes, that's right, Keith. In the last 12 months, we've spent more money than ever on technology. So we are leaning heavily into creating the systems and processes that allow us to get to our service quickly. And at the same time, we've invested more into staffing up in the past 12 months, into inviting people into our office, and we can still do everything remotely. We can do it virtually for folks who want that. We've found that a lot of residents love to look us in the face, and they like to come down to our office, and they like to sit across from Karen and across from Gabby, and they just love the personalized experience that we give them. It's hard to quantify it, Keith, but I just really believe that it drives longevity.
Right, having a face behind that rental because your properties are freshly rehabbed, or in some cases they're new builds, so hopefully you won't have too many tenant service calls once they do become a resident, and you don't need to interact with them all the time, though you're there for them. But once you have chosen a tenant and that tenant is placed, somebody has to be the adult in the lease, and we sincerely hope that the tenant is one of them. So with regard to that, how do you help ensure that tenants keep making on-time payments and you can keep tenants and not get ones that break the lease? So can you speak to us about that, how you can help identify that in the screening and then that ongoing relationship?
I will say that perfect vetting does not necessarily lead to perfect collections. because it turns out that every one of our residents, they are humans. And as humans, we run into things, divorce can happen, relationship breakups can happen, job losses happen, just very human things happen. And so we like to stay in touch with our residents as often as possible and very much encourage an open line of communication. We very much believe in compassion-based collections here at Mid-South. And so when residents fall upon hard times, we are truly there for them. Memphis actually has more nonprofits per capita than any place in America. And so when residents do fall on hard times, and it happens, we're actually able to reach out. We have connections with several agencies that can help with rental assistance for renters who need it. We found that by pouring into our staffing with the resident support and solutions department, that we've had a lot of success in collecting just by keeping that relationship intact. When the pandemic hit, for instance, and I know that's been a few years from now, and maybe we all want to forget it, our collections rate actually went up during that time. And I attribute that largely to the fact that, number one, we had a relationship in place with our renters. We staffed up. As a matter of fact, we had a full-time person just working to get rent assistance for those renters who kind of had been disenfranchised by the pandemic.
During pandemic times or post-pandemic times, whenever it is, us as investors, we're always interested in reducing that vacancy time. We seem to be in a period, at least nationally, where when people get a hold of a place, they want to keep it and hold on to it. In a lot of markets, the duration of a tenancy has been increasing. So despite what era that we're in, can you talk to us about some of the best practices for how you reduce the vacancy time? Because we all know vacancy and turnover is our biggest expense over time as investors.
I like to say, at the heart of what we do is making sure that when a hardworking single mother comes home at the end of the day, she can give her child a hot bath. And that's not possible if the water heater's out. And that's just one example, but our main job is to give a good quality of life to the residents that we are caring for. And if we can do that, and if we can treat them with respect when they do fall on hard times, like Matthew said, they're going to want to renew the lease. So we have got a almost twice the average length of stay as the industry average, which is we've got about a 4-year average resident stay. And when folks move out of a Mid-South house, it's not because they can find a better value. They're already in the nicest house on the street. And if something breaks, we're out there lickety-split to fix it. When folks move out of a Mid-South house, it's either because they're downsizing, kids are moving out, or they're going up because they're having their family increases and they've got to move up, or maybe something happens to them, like Matthew mentioned, death, divorce, disability, these things happen, right? But no one's moving out because they can find a better value or because they're not getting the service or respect that they deserve.
That says a lot. Being managers of 5,800 to 5,900 properties, which gives you this sort of canvassing or de facto surveying ability that you have, what are we seeing for the direction of rents? We'll get into rents and prices later, because nationally, rents are just holding steady. They're really not rising very much. What do you see there?
Yes, we saw them fairly stable over the course of 2024. I have started to see an uptick here in the past few months, I will say, which is encouraging for investors for sure. Each month, I'm looking at all of the renewal rates personally to kind of look at that, engage the market. And like you said, it really is helpful. I mean, yes, we have all the tools, Zillow, Rentometer, all these things, but there's nothing like just our own data of seeing, hey, what's the house across the street renting for? How long did it take for that to rent? And incorporating that into our data. And right now, our houses are moving at a faster pace on the leasing tip, which rent increases tend to follow that.
When it comes to optimizing rents, a lot of that coming back to reducing vacancy time, there are a number of strategies that one can employ. Now, it's not with you guys, but I have a single-family rental home in another market, and one promotion that manager is running and encouraged me to participate in is a 50-inch flat screen TV. having that and giving it away to the tenant. Somehow that only costs $250. So I decided to do that for a vacancy that I have there in that market. Now, some investors might say, why am I buying TVs for a tenant? I'm already providing them with a place. If the rent is $1,500, a $250 TV only costs 5 days of vacancy, and that helps me reduce that vacancy period. Might even make a tenant want to stay longer. So sometimes you got to be thinking about how your tenant thinks, and you can come up with inventive ways to reduce vacancy. Do you have anything like that? Any small concession that you've offered or have needed to offer in either market?
Well, we haven't done anything like that, Keith, but what we do like to do, and Matthew mentioned this earlier, is great tenants tend to refer other great residents. And so we have a referral bonus that we pay out to our residents that refer other folks to us. And that does not come out of the pocket of our investors. That comes out of our pocket because it's our job to make sure that we rent these properties as quick as we can to qualified residents.
One thing that I've liked about Memphis, which few markets have, is that it's embedded within renter culture in Memphis, since it is such a renter city, that renters travel with their appliances, like their refrigerator, in their stove, in their dishwasher, which always seems crazy to me. So you're not providing those appliances. It seems like that fact alone might help with resident retention in Memphis. They're just less likely to move when they have more stuff to move.
Yeah, it's really true. Yeah. And the longer people stay, the longer they tend to stay, as funny as that sounds. And yeah, that's something that we found even in our new construction homes where we do provide the appliances. We've been finding in many instances still the residents are coming with their own appliances. And so we're storing our brand new appliances in our warehouse.
Wow, yes, that's just something that you don't see in other places. And when it comes to retention, we're interested in maintaining the property, like you talked about being proactive with. Are there some other things you do to help ensure that the maintenance expenses stay lower throughout the lifetime of that investor ownership? How do you approach that?
It really starts with doing a full-blown rehab, right? So every once in a while, we'll have houses that, have some age on the components, but when we do a rehab, everything is brand spanking new, like a new roof, got the kitchen, got the bathroom, all new electrical, all new plumbing, all new HVAC, a new water heater, the whole 9 yards. So it starts there. And then when a property turns over, we go into the property and we are looking for safe and clean, right? So we want to make sure to keep the water out. We want to make sure that everything is safe and the property is tip top and super clean. Fortunately, the folks that are maintaining the houses for our investors, the technicians, are the same technicians that did the renovations on the property.
Great.
And it's the same materials.
Yeah.
It's like we have an assembly line and a junky house jumps on the assembly line and we rip everything off and all the same materials jump back on the house. So we're able to keep costs low because of that, and also because the labor that we end up having to pay the technicians typically is a lot less than normal because they're used to working on the same water heater, the same HVAC system, the same furnace, the same dishwasher. So our volume model kind of helps with that.
Oh, if you were listening closely, yes, what a huge efficiency that can be. You fellas have any last thoughts about efficient property management, since that's what you've led for more than 13 years, Matthew?
I resonate with what you said about how many investors overlook vacancy costs when properties turn over. And so I think it's just getting your rents right on the money, maybe just a little below, can actually drive returns, as opposed to maybe trying to get an extra $25 more, which takes you 3 weeks longer to rent. You actually did not come out ahead in that scenario, Keith.
Today, with inflation, a $25 difference, we're down to 12 hours of vacancy is really all we're talking about there. Property management, turning a passive income into an active lifestyle since forever. That's what they do. Property managers are the people that have never met a maintenance issue that waited until business hours. So that's why I'm grateful that my managers do what they do for me. That's what we're talking about today. More when we come back with Terry Kerr and Matthew Vanhorn of Mid-South Homebuyers. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. If you're scrolling for quality real estate and finance info today, Yeah, it can be a mess. You hit paywalls, pop-ups, push alerts, cookie banners. It's like the internet is playing defense against you. Not so fun. That's why it matters to get clean, free content that actually adds no hype value to your life. This is the golden age of quality email newsletters, and I write every word of ours myself. It's got a dash of humor, it's direct, and it gets to the point, because even the word abbreviation is too long. My letter takes less than 3 minutes to read, and it leaves you feeling sharp and in the know about real estate investing. This is paradigm-shifting material. And when you start the letter, you'll also get my 1-hour fast real estate video course, completely free as well. It's called the Don't Quit Your Daydream letter. It wires your mind for wealth, and it couldn't be simpler to get. Visit greletter.com. While it's fresh in your head, take a moment to do it now at greletter.com. Visit greletter.com. The same place where I get my own mortgage loans is where you can get yours, Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They provided our listeners with more loans than anyone because they specialize in income properties. They help you build a long-term plan for growing your real estate empire with leverage. Start your pre-qual and even chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. While it's on your mind, start at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's ridgelendinggroup.com.
This is Rich Dad Advisor Tom Wheelwright. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. You've got the pleasure of listening to the voices of America's oldest turnkey real estate provider, Mid-South Homebuyers, based in Memphis, Tennessee. And some years ago, they branched out to Little Rock, Arkansas as well, just about a 2-hour road trip west of Memphis. When us as investors buy a property, we've got to be cognizant of the fact that that property swims in an economic ocean, and therefore job vibrancy is, after all, how the tenant pays the rent. So tell us about economic developments in Memphis and Little Rock, because there are some exciting ones.
So yeah, both in Memphis and in Little Rock, we've got the roads, we've got the rivers, we've got the rails, which drives both Memphis and Little Rock as distribution hubs here in the middle of America. And so, of course, FedEx famously has their headquarters here in Memphis. Many of your listeners will know it's the largest cargo airport in America. We've had a resurgence of XAI has actually come to Memphis and built the world's largest supercomputer here in Memphis. And they're actually working hard now on building a second called Colossus 2, which is going to be even larger. They're saying it may hold as many as 1 million NVIDIA chips, which I can't do that math, but that's a lot of money. And so XAI has quickly become the second largest taxpayer here in Memphis and in Shelby County. And 25% of those tax proceeds, by the way, they're earmarked to go right into that local community beside where the plant is and all the development is. In Little Rock, of course, it's Arkansas's largest city. It's the capital city. And so by nature of that, there are many stable state government jobs there that is a bulwark of the economic development there. There is actually fintech startup space is big in Little Rock as well. Lockheed Martin has been doing developments there. So a lot of aerospace development around Little Rock. Folks who look at our homes will also notice that we are in Jacksonville, which is a suburb of Little Rock. That's anchored by the Air Force Base there in Jacksonville. And there's actually a large munitions supplier there, Sig Sauer, which provides a lot of jobs to the locals there. And our number one, I may have mentioned it earlier, our number one employer in Central Arkansas is actually Baptist Health Medical Center. And just generally speaking, healthcare workers make up the largest portion of our residents in Central Arkansas. So a lot of great economic drivers that we're seeing, bringing renters to Little Rock and new jobs there. As a matter of fact, not just that, but I noted recently that the cost of living in Little Rock is now 10% below the national average. I think we had a report on our website a few years ago that it was 6%, and it's only becoming more favorable to live in Central Arkansas.
Yeah, we're talking about stable and growing drivers here, AI-related businesses and healthcare. Let's talk about those rents and prices, because really this is one reason why national investors are so drawn to that area. It's that high affordability and that high ratio of rent income to purchase price. So what sort of rent and price ranges are we looking at in both markets now?
It's not the same as it was when I started here in 2012.
Sure.
Rents have increased. And so, average rents around here start around 900, and now we're going up to about 1700 toward the high end there. And, the great news is that incomes have increased as well. And so our renters are able to afford this just as well as they were before, or maybe even better. Like I mentioned, cost of living in Arkansas has actually improved. And so what that means is people are actually making more money compared to the rent, even though rents have increased, which I believe is good news for investors. And it's been good news for us as a management company, as I think that contributes to the resident longevity there once again.
Nowhere in the nation do we hear enough about increased affordability stories, which is exactly what you have when your income rises faster than your rent, which is a harbinger of being able to increase the rent in the future. Tell us more about the rent and price ranges in both markets.
In Memphis, if you get a 2-bed, 1-bath, you can often find that for as low as 800, 850, something like that. As you step up into a 3-bed, 1-bath, that's going to be somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200, depending on where you are in the city there in Memphis. If you're in our new construction homes, those can range between $1,395 all the way up to $1,850, once again, depending on the size of the construction and the location. Out in Arkansas, rents tend to be just a little bit higher than in Memphis. So you see the rents starting there around $950 and going up to just under $2,000.
And we're interested in that capital price because a lot of times investors think about their purchase through that perspective of the ratio of the rent income to the purchase price.
As far as sales price goes, Keith, we started right around $100,000 on the low end, and those can range up to $240,000 thereabouts on the high end if you're talking about a new construction 3-2 with a 2-car garage in an appreciating area. You can see that sort of range. In Memphis, very similar. We have some of our smaller rehabs starting as low as $100,000 and going up to about that $215,000 range.
Now, I would imagine in the inflationary era that we're still in, that you get investors that call in there, and you do have these robust interactions with investors where you talk with them on the phone like a human being, and people that say, come on, how can you get a respectable tenant in a single-family rehab rental home that only costs $120,000? How do you handle questions like that?
That's the whole job here sometimes,
Yeah.
is explaining that,
Sure.
no, where our renters are living, it's the best home that they've ever lived in, and it's in a affordable area. It's in an area where their friends live, where you just have workforce, just blue collar, but beautiful neighborhoods where they live. And they're proud to call these houses their home. And for many, it really is their dream home.
People mow their lawns. The streets aren't littered with trash. I know where you guys invest. I've been on the streets there with you, checking them out. What percentage of investors finance the property, and how has that changed over time?
I'm going to say that it's probably about 75% finance, 25% cash. A lot of your listeners come with their own mortgage broker. The ones that don't, we have our tried and true mortgage brokers. Interest rates are not 4% anymore, and some folks are wanting to pay cash, and they do, and some of them will pay cash and then plan on refinancing later. But right now, that's probably about 25% cash, 75% finance.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that direction since rates did begin to get higher in 2022. you have this robust interaction with investors, but that doesn't only have to be over the phone. You guys are so proud of what you do that you've long offered investor tours. In fact, now you're doing more of those investor tours than you ever have. I believe you're doing 11 tours per year in Memphis and 5 in Little Rock as well. So tell us about that.
I guess it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. We're so stoked that everybody wants to buy houses from us, and we've got, a short wait list, and that's awesome, but we want folks to come visit us. And so, we just started offering folks $500 off of the purchase of their first home if they'll just come visit us. And so we know it's in our best interest to try to get to know our investors on a personal level, and the investors that do come to visit us, and we're able to pull back the curtain and show them, how operational efficiency benefits them as investors. I think they appreciate it. And then we do also just kind of like to nerd out on the nuts and bolts of the business. So it's fun to be able to pull that curtain back.
Now, you don't have to be an investor to come on the tour. Either prospective investors or regular investors that are already there can come on the tour. Is the tour free?
Absolutely.
So the tour is free, and you get a $500 credit if you end up purchasing there. Most investors never come physically see the property at all, but you sure can do that, and they make it really easy for you. Well, this is going to help a lot of people, especially when we think about how to manage the tenant and reduce our vacancy time in today's era. Before I ask how our listeners can learn more about you, do you have any last thoughts at all about anything that we discussed, management or properties or tenants or anything else maybe I did not think about asking you?
I'll just go back to Keith talking about how well staffed we are here at Mid-South. I think that's where we stand apart from a lot of our competitors, is that we're not just 2 or 3 guys in an office here. We have over 100 employees. It takes speed to deliver good service. Service leads to satisfaction. Satisfaction leads to the residents staying. The residents staying leads to stacks of cash for you as investors. And the only way you can do that is if you're staffed up properly. And so that's something that you want to ask if you're ever vetting another property manager is what does your staff look like? And really understand, can they actually provide the service to their residents and to their investors that they're reporting?
You have helped more of our listeners than any other provider in the nation, certainly over 100 of them, perhaps hundreds by now. I'm not really sure. If listeners want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Invest at midsouthhomebuyers.com.
That's a great starting place for you. And that way you can take a look at properties, get thinking about the market, learn more about their management, and get a hold of them. Terry and Matthew, it's been valuable as usual. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Oh yeah, sharp insights from Terry and Matthew at Mid-South Homebuyers today. Waiving their application fee means more applicants, a bigger renter pool to choose from, which either shortens your vacancy time or it's going to get you a better quality tenant. Now, a lot of people, they think that real estate is unaffordable and even impossible, but few make it easier and more affordable than these people. And I think I shared with you before that an 18-year-old guy who I do know and have talked to in person, he bought his first ever rental property from Mid-South Homebuyers. So it's kind of interesting. His goal was to own his first rental property when he was 18, and he closed just in time, the day before his 19th birthday. I think he's age 20 now. But because fully renovated single-family homes can be bought in a range of about $100 to $220K here, and you will put 20 to 25% of a down payment on that, your monthly rent is about 0.8% of that purchase price. Okay, so that's renovated. And then new builds sell in a range of 200 to 260K. Rent to price ratios on those are a little lower. They're 0.75 or so. Now, we are here in an era where mortgage rates are in the low 6s for owner-occupieds. That means you'll pay closer to 7% on income properties. But if you go new build, which is really something I've been suggesting to you for a while, if you can swing it, those rates are as low as 5.25% for qualified buyers here. Yes, at these low Memphis and Little Rock prices. They've got a few duplexes usually available as well. Renting your residence, it's just something that's sort of in the culture there in Memphis, and that's why they're confident in offering a number of guarantees for investors. They just do things that other providers don't do. In the rare event that your property is occupied and then it somehow falls vacant during your first year of ownership, their releasing fee is free. They also have a guarantee that you will cash flow after you close. They have a 1-year bumper-to-bumper warranty on their renovations. We're talking about from the doorknob to the ductwork. And there's a lifetime 90-day occupancy guarantee. What that means is if your property were ever vacant for that long, they would start paying rent to you on day 91. But you know what's amazing? It's easy for them to offer that. They'll tell you that they've never had to pay out on that because they've never experienced a vacancy of more than 55 days. Just amazing. And all those guarantees I just told you about, that is in writing on their website. So if you want to get a hold of them, there's virtually no one else in the nation that makes it easier and more affordable. I believe that's an email address that Terry gave there. Again, it is invest@midsouthhomebuyers.com. Their website is, as you might have guessed, midsouthhomebuyers.com. That's midsouthhomebuyers.com. Interestingly, you can even look at their income properties there. Some provider websites don't let you do that. And again, they offer free tours. And if you prefer, their phone number is 901-306-9009. This week, you learned some great techniques for reducing your vacancy and being more profitable, as well as a provider that can deliver it for you, should you so choose. The proverb goes, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Well, you've got the option of doing either one or both today. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.